I'd now like to invite Chrissy Sharp to deliver the Occassional address. Chrissy is the inaugural director of the Wheeler Centre for Books, Writing and Ideas. The Wheeler Centre is a Victorian government initiative as part of Melbourne's successful bid to become a UNESCO City of Literature, one of UNESCO's Global Creative Cities network. She brings more than 20 years' experience in the arts in Australia and overseas. Chrissy has held a range of prominent senior executive appointments, including the General Manager of the Sadler's Wells Dance Theatre, that was between 2004 and 2009, a Board Director of Cheek by Jowl Theatre Company in London, General Manager of the Sydney Festival, Head of Policy at SBS and the Executive Director of the Australian Writers Guild. During her time at Sadler's Wells, this venerable institution saw a dramatic change in its financial situation and was repositioned as one of the leading European contemporary dance houses. In October 2009, the Australia Council for the Arts appointed Chrissy as Chair of the Dance Board and a member of the Council for 3 years. Please welcome Chrissy Sharp.
Thank you, Councillor. And it's a great pleasure to be here today. I just want to congratulate you all. This is a great day. I remember my own graduation, and it's really important. It marks a very important stage in your life, the completion of a lot of hard work. But I hope you've had a lot of fun too. And coming here today, of course, has made me sort of think about my own working life. And whether there are any sort of threads that I can draw from it that might be useful. And it seems to me now that when I look back, I don't think I ever planned my career. I've jumped around from, film and television and performing arts and, dance and now literature. But I think what I did really all along was just kind of take the opportunities that came to hand. And I also reflect on what the councillor said, which is we don't stop learning, and we mustn't. And I think my attitude to my working life has been there's always lots to learn. I mean, when I went from the Writers Guild to SBS, for instance, I answered an ad in the paper, I prepped, I got the job. But when I look back, I just didn't have a clue about the technical sides of broadcasting at all. I mean, within my first fortnight at SBS, I was sent off to Canberra to make the case to the federal government for a southwest beam. A beam, I had no idea. So I raised it. In fact, what it was a way of bringing SBS television to rural communities in the southern part of Western Australia. So I thought, so I dashed around and found the chief engineer at SBS, and he very kindly sat me down and did a kind of a very brief tutorial on beams, and I kind of winged it. But I think that's been my attitude all my life, and I have to say I have had, in my view, some fantastic jobs. Almost all of them I've really loved, and I guess you can say it's all showbiz. But for instance, when I went from SBS to the Sydney Festival, which is a big international arts festival, I'd never before put on a show. So lots of learning along the way. Keep learning. And I guess the other thing I'd say is take every opportunity that comes your way. Just grab every chance, and never be afraid to be ambitious, and never be afraid to ask when you don't know something. It's much worse to pretend that you do. And people, keep learning, keep asking questions. I finished my degree an awfully long time ago, in the early 70s, and I don't think most of you can imagine how different things were then, especially for women. No equal pay, certainly no equal opportunities, and in those days women actually had to leave their jobs when they had children. It sort of feels like prehistoric times, but it doesn't seem like that long ago to me. I studied history, and I really loved it, and I had a lot of fun as a student. But when I graduated, I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I took the job that my parents wanted me to take, which in those days I think we were more obedient. Certainly my children wouldn't dream of doing anything I told them to do now. But that job really didn't engage or excite me very much, and I kept trying to think about my future, my real future. And I kept coming back to the fact that I wanted to make a difference, and I kept thinking about something that had made a deep impression on me. The Aboriginal tent embassy that had been set up in front of Parliament House while I was at uni in Canberra had made me cringingly aware of how our own first Australians had been overlooked, neglected and treated appallingly. I, for one, and I'm sure it was true of many Australians at that time, I knew more about the civil rights movement in America than I did about the treatment of black people in my own country. I wanted to make a difference, and I noticed that the ABC had a number of programs at that time, actually. It was just that period where we were all becoming more aware of what was really going on. And there were two programs in particular, Four Corners, which we still have on ABC TV, and another program, very good documentary series that used to go to air once a week called Checkerboard. Long gone, but it was a very good show in its time. It was black and white back in those days, by the way. I figured that my history degree had taught me how to do research, and so I wrote to the ABC asking for a job as a researcher. The response I got told me to apply to the typing pool. This was before computers were on everyone's desk. You never saw a computer. And in those days, most organisations, you'd write out what you wanted to write and you'd send it to this room, which was filled with girls busily bent over typewriters. The thing that I thought was really strange is that I couldn't type. What use was I going to be in a typing pool? And why had the response, here I was, a graduate and proud of it, why was the response to assume that if I was a girl, that's where I should go? I just kept writing letters, but the answer was always the same, and I got fed up. I figured maybe you needed to be a journalist to work for Four Corners, which you probably did actually. So I thought, I'll focus on Checkerboard. And one day I just caught the train and went. I looked it up in the phone book and just went to the offices of Checkerboard. I was young. The woman at reception looked astonished and told me there was no one there that could talk to me. But she had a kind face and she listened to my story, and after a while she told me to sit down. And 5 minutes later she came back and she said, "The executive producer will see you." Now, I hadn't expected that. But I went in, I had a few story ideas, no stories that they ever actually used, and we had a good chat. And 2 days later, I was offered the job, a temporary job as a researcher for Checkerboard. I mean, it was incredible luck. And I'm not telling that story to talk about early determination and how I knew where I was going or anything like that. I think what it was about was youthful audacity. I just wanted to give it a go. It could have ended quite differently, of course. I mightn't have been lucky, but at least I would still have felt I'd given it my best shot, not just taken the rejection of the official letter. So there's my advice. Give it a go. In my working life, have I made a difference like I thought I might? In small ways, maybe, only small ways. At SBS, for example, I campaigned for and secured federal funding for something called SBS Independent, which was a branch of SBS that made film and documentaries, a lot of it about Indigenous communities and by Indigenous filmmakers. And lots of Aboriginal filmmakers got their start there, like Warwick Thornton, who went on to make the hugely successful Samson and Delilah. So, along the way, I feel that I've made, but only I really know, I think, the difference I've made, I've gained enormous satisfaction from trying to make a difference, and I think it's always been extremely important to me that I believe passionately in the value of what I'm working at. I also think there's real satisfaction from working hard, from always trying to do your best. That sounds really corny, I know, but I do believe it. So, I'm wishing you all the very best. Grab every opportunity that comes your way. Believe in yourselves. Believe that it's worth trying to make a difference in our society, even though only you can see the difference you make. Just go for it. And congratulations again to all of you. And thank you.